everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Startuprad.io, your podcast show with startup news and interviews from Germany.
Hello and welcome to a new edition of Startuprad.io, the wrap-up for the German entrepreneurship and startup scene. This is Christian speaking, doing the intro today, and I welcome the boss of it all, Jörn.
Hey, folks.
In Frankfurt. Me sitting in New York, and obviously now I made the mistake not to introduce the woman first, but also we have Margaret on our show as well. As always, a pleasure. Welcome, Margaret.
Hi, and I'm so glad to be on on again with you guys. Boss of it all, and what's his name in New York. So.
That's true. It's Christian. So yeah, and me doing the intro has a reason, because I messed up, people, and I want to start things off today with apologizing for not producing a show in February. It was due to some travel-related stuff, and it was mostly me not taking care of things. It didn't have to do with the fact that I wasn't on the show the last time around either, which was due to a startup innovation in Beirut, in Lebanon. So I made it out of the Lebanon, now made it back to New York. Jörn made it back from, I think it was Tanzania or South Africa.
Yeah, this is Africa.
Ooh,
awesome country.
Yeah, I made it through my graduate thesis. I finished my MBA. So, when you talk to me now, that's like Miss MBA to you.
Awesome. And so this is a We Made It episode already?
Exactly. So that's our mutual excuse. Although, Christian, are you sure you didn't get lost in a taxi or something using one of those strange apps you're using in New York?
Now, now I'm totally back. I'm a Lyft guy. I'm not an Uber guy, I have to admit. I like Lyft, and usually the drivers tell me that Lyft is more fun or nicer to work with. But I always wonder if that's actually the case, or if they just tell that based depending on what company you book the driver with. I don't know.
So Christian, I do have a question about you. I do have a question about like the startup business in taxis in New York. I was reading these articles, that like about a couple of months ago, not even, that are starting to say that it's really hard to see a yellow cab in New York. Is that true?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. I mean, it's as hard as it ever was once the first 3 raindrops come down, and then all of a sudden all the cabs seem to disappear. And there's no cab around if you need one. But I see a lot of the yellow cabs already, but their whole industry is totally crushed, because the taxi medallions in New York, so the licenses that allow you to drive a cab, they were being traded for as much as $1.2 million in their heyday. Yeah. And this number now went down to, I think, probably 800,000. What usually happened was that people who paid the 1.3 million, they considered it an investment, because obviously if you are a taxi driver, you don't have $1.3 million lying around. And so this investment really, really lost a lot of value. And this is what the Uber and Lyft industry did for them. So that sucks. And there are now like a couple of more competitors in the market as well. There is Get and 2 or 3 that I now even forget. And
And also, I just added to our show notes 2 articles that popped into my consciousness this morning. It's Morning Agenda, the exodus from Uber continues, New York Times, and approximately 18 hours before they wrote 2 executives to leave Uber, adding to departures. So basically at Uber there's right now a big cut, a big departing on senior positions, and we may also tell our listeners that this startup news is recording on the 20th of March, so all the news before are considered, all the news coming 21st and after are not in, right?
True. And it's also the first day of spring, actually. But one last thing about Uber. They got a lot of bad press recently in the last couple of weeks. So there was the whole discussion about Uber drivers still bringing people to the airport when the travel ban of Donald Trump was in effect. Uber got a lot of criticism for that because the taxi drivers, they went on an immediate strike for 2 hours or so, and Uber still brought people there. But here's a little secret, an exclusive secret for Startuprad.io listeners. I went to the protest because I covered it as a journalist, and I took a Lyft, and Lyft still also brought people to the airport. So yeah, let's see how how many waves this will make. And then there was the discussion about Kalanick, a part of the economic or CEO board of Donald Trump. So people pressured him to leave that council, which he did. And also there was
this bad
a
video with him with the two girls, right, in the back of an Uber.
And there was this video with him, and there was a woman who worked there, and she heavily complained about the working culture being incredibly misogynistic. And I think she was one of the developers, which also got a lot of attention here in the US. So Uber really is in the public eye. I think it happens to a lot of companies on top of their game. But yeah, I don't know how much of this is usually sustainable or not. But bottom line is they got a lot of criticism in the last couple of weeks.
I was just wanted to pick up on that a little bit, as we move on to some of the other issues here. But I think that the Uber example, whatever you call it, like the pickup app idea, is one of those situations where you have, clearly a disruptive business model that comes in, but it's disruptive on so many levels. I've been reading this stuff about, all of the Uber problems. They're banned, of course, here in Germany. It's an interesting sort of perspective to watch this kind of, how this kind of disrupted industry affects, or disruptive technology affects this kind of industry. And the question, I guess, really is out there for, is Uber going to be like the pets.com of the apps business? It's just, there's so many problems.
Sure.
It's making money, but are there all these problems? But anyway, I'm just glad that, Christian, you're not lost in one. That's
just the usual lost, not more than average. But yeah, and with Uber, you still have this whole discussion on the horizon coming up with the self-driving cars and everything, how they are going to solve this. Which also, by the way, but it's just my one sentence about this, like one food for thought here, is a crazy thing considering Donald Trump's tactic to be willing to bring back coal miners' jobs. Because I read a figure that the biggest job sector in the US is now people driving. So it's either driving taxis or Uber or Lyft or trucks or whatever. You can pretty much tell that probably in 10, 15, 20 years, all those jobs will vanish. And I think the number is like something around like 3 million people working in the driving sector right now. And those people, they need to be trained to get other jobs if they are now around 40 years old or younger. Whatever. So that was the Trump bashing. What are we going to do today? We will have a short look at what happened in February, and then we will look in more detail into what happened in March. First off, to start with the talks about what went on in February, I think, is Jörn.
Well, people, I found an overview. I like numbers, I like statistics. I'm doing Excel sheets. Lots of my job is just Excel sheeting. So I found 82.4 million euros, which is approximately 85-90 million US dollars in 2016 has been in venture capital invested in insurtech startups. Also a little bit from the February news. Once again, a little bit Rocket Corner. There have been two crowd lending platforms run by Rocket Internet, one of them being Lendico, which was usually tailored towards retail investors. And they've been out there to raise another capital round. And apparently in February, Gründersöhne reported that Lendico is in a little bit of crisis because the Spanish bank BBVA apparently backed out of towards the end of the VC round, and so it all went into dust. Talking a little bit about Uber, growth versus profit. We found a very interesting article from Knowledge at Wharton about Uber's cash burning dilemma. And I found eventually...
Then there's also some bad news. We're always advocating Frankfurt as a startup city anyway, because this is where Jörn is more or less headquartered. There was a new study about Berlin only being number 4 in Europe's startup capitals, behind Paris, London, and Stockholm. So, you will see that on our show notes as well.
So I want to hear about the third biggest German Kickstarter going downhill.
Yes.
What's that? What's the deal with that? Because I'm looking at crowdfunding right now, and I have to say that Germans, by definition, are just as suspicious of crowdfunding as they are of social media. That's my personal belief. It's what is the deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's true to a certain degree. So this leads us right into the March news. A Kickstarter in Germany, like you said, was the third biggest ever in Germany. This company now is bankrupt. What they promised was a very nice looking like water kettle, water boiler kind of thing. And it was meant to work with induction technology. So by the pictures they used on the website, which you can find in the show notes, it really looked as if it was as if you just had to put your mug or your glass on a black plate and then push a button and then it would heat things up.
Adding to that, also a big insolvency in the crowdfunding area has been in February. Sorry to interrupt you guys. Has been Protonet. They did provide a private cloud service, but apparently it never went really to the point where more than computer science enthusiasts could really use it, and so at one point they burned through all the money and they are gone. Together, in summer 2014, they raised within 90 minutes 750,000 euros, which was world record for crowdfunding. And now on 13th of February, so the day before Valentine's Day, exactly, unfortunately, they had to file for insolvency. Really sorry to see them go.
Okay, so yeah, you can probably speak of a trend here. So back to Mito or My Ito, I don't know how to pronounce it properly. They collected a rather small amount of money. It was just 800,000 euro, but it was 6,000 people on Kickstarter backing them. Now the money is more or less gone. The insolvency lawyer they are using, or they hired, said that the remaining money shall be reimbursed to the backers, but how much of the 800,000 euro collected is still remaining was not publicly confirmed yet. So they have to pay their suppliers first, I guess, and the designers. But yeah, that didn't really work out. Yeah, probably you're right. It's probably still a niche thing to do, to use Kickstarter, and probably there weren't that many cases where Kickstarter or kickstarting crowdfunded campaigns really gathered so much traction on the platform.
Yeah, but see, I think that what you're talking about though is slightly different. It sounds like this one, they raised the money, but they didn't quite get their stuff in order.
Yeah.
I mean, right. I mean, and it was interesting because the reason I was, my eye was caught to this particular item was that last week I was one of my meetup groups here in Frankfurt, and it was super interesting. I mean, it was definitely people who were thinking and disrupting healthcare. Actually, it was a very cool startup event, disrupting healthcare. But one of the people who presented actually said that they had raised 1.2 million euros overseas in American Kickstarter. So the idea of, raising the money and then not quite doing what you're supposed to do is one thing. I'm just kind of curious about what the German appetite really is for getting a Kickstarter campaign off the ground, because it sounds like people are raising the money. It's just like, then, oops, we're not doing what we said we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, and also probably it has to do with the general mindset of the Germans, because I think when it comes to gadgets, Germans have never been as playful as the Americans are. So I guess you can label the Americans as the as seen on TV nation. So I think they're used to this like teleshopping and all these kinds of things. And in Germany, it took really a lot of time to get off the ground for those things. Yeah. And now we have Home Shopping Europe and like the shopping channels. But I think it works very differently, because they are not, it's not this funny little gadget thing that you would order at the on the teleshopping channel, but more clothes or linens, bed sheets or something like that.
That came to my mind when you've been starting to talk about home shopping, because actually it appears that the target group of the home shopping is quite older here in Germany than it is abroad, because the only one person I know who watches home shopping on a regular basis is my mom, and she's already retired. And when I watch with her, the people who call in live into the TV, they sound like they've been all a little bit more senior. Yeah. So apparently, for me, it's like the generation who's a little bit too old to be comfortable with e-commerce. Here in Germany,
yeah.
At least.
Well, so yeah, except you don't have like Ivanka Trump here. I mean, there is a level on which
Yes,
I think
thank God.
both of you are absolutely right. But since you're absolutely right on target. I mean, as a 13-year-old kid, I was like dropped into this like buy, this like shopping culture everywhere. I mean, partly that's U.S. culture, and partly we don't have Ivanka, and we don't have that sort of like pitch culture here in Germany where everything is super commercialized. The flip side is, though, that Germans like to buy strange stuff. They do. I think they just, like everybody, right? But they just don't necessarily want to buy it on like a shop till you drop. You've got 90 seconds to whip out your credit card kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And also credit cards for a very long time weren't really a thing. So if you were a teleshopping company, I think it was always worth it figuring out other methods of payment. So because, again, like the parent generation, I think a lot of them don't even have a credit card. And
that's totally true. The only thing my mom has is like a client card, like a Maestro EC card, where she can pay in the shop, but it's directly debited. It's just a debit card. But what also came to my mind, if I try out a new restaurant here in Frankfurt, I usually go on their website or on TripAdvisor and have a look if I can even pay with credit card, because you have like a very little local store. It is usually the case that you cannot pay by credit or debit card. You pay cash only. We still have quite a few shops here around in Frankfurt that do cash only.
Yeah.
And that is I have to say, that is super European, because, the boomers, in other words, your parents' generation in the US, are the people who absolutely love credit cards. So, I mean, but at the same time, the Germans have a better system of, like, the SEPA system is way better. So you don't necessarily need a credit card. Plus, there's this German thing about not being in debt, right? Which is
first, I want to break news to you, Margaret,
for long. So, but I think it's an interesting side note. We're full of side notes and tonight. And
Margaret.
So what's going on? Speaking of the U.S., what's going on in the South by Southwest?
Margaret?
Yeah, so
South
by Southwest, hopping a bit back and forth, it just finished. I think they wrapped up things 2 days ago or yesterday. So for the people still not familiar with the concept, it is a by now gigantic conference taking place in Austin, Texas, one of the few pretty indie places or alternative places in Texas, I would say. It is a conference with 3 tiers, being interactive, film, and music. So there are a lot of concerts, a lot of talks about indie movie makers, but also interactive and media-related stuff. Startup companies like to present themselves there, and somehow Germany became one of the countries that sends the biggest delegations or groups of people to South by Southwest, which was also the case this year. There was a startup called Holoplot, and this startup won the South by Southwest Interactive Innovation Award in a category called Music and Audio. So what Holoplot does, I think they're from Berlin, they build sound walls that allow focused sounds in a train station, which means, for example, if you're in a train station or any bigger public area, which means that, for example, the wall has several hundred or up to 1,000 sound units. That's at least how I understood it. And then the sound can be specifically aimed at a particularly small area of the train station. So you wouldn't come up with sound for the whole platform, but probably only for people very close to a couple of those speakers. That's what Holoplot does. They won. And then there's another company, which I guess you will like. It's called Horse Analytics. Horse Analytics.
Sorry. It's like, I just love the idea.
You're such an easy audience. I appreciate that. And I didn't even explain it yet. So Horse Analytics offers wearable for horses, which means I don't know, step counter. The what they say, and it gets better. It says your horse in your pocket. They're somehow.
That is innovative, finding your audience. I mean, that is amazing. audience if I've ever heard of one.
It's really niche. Yeah, if you want to look it up, it's horse-analytics.com or horse-analytics.com. And
Link in our show notes, sorry. Wearable for
Yeah.
horses.
it is crazy because I wonder, like, let's say you're a lazy horse and then all of a sudden the other horses can mock you for not running that much, or like, I don't know how it goes. But yeah, it sounded like fun. The horse analytics people, they didn't win the accelerated pitches there, but they at least were able to present themselves.
Well, see, now here's my question to you. Okay, so the team behind horseanalytics.com, I mean, they spent time. They put up a website. They put together whatever this is. Do you think that they might actually have thought they might win?
I mean,
I mean, seriously.
Well,
Was it that strange?
Let's put it like this. I'm pretty sure horse people pay a lot of money for their animal and they like the animal to stay healthy. Probably if you own a horse, then you're renting it out from time to time. So probably there's a market there where you want to know like what the other people are doing with your horse and how healthy it stays. So
like a wearable Uber for horses, basically.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
So yeah, so we'll see. We'll see where I think we will have. We'll have an eye on that. At least it seems.
Will be the horse analytics tracker, right?
Horse analytics is now on our radar, I guess. Yeah.
They did this year much better than SoundCloud, I'm afraid, right?
Yes. So this leads to less fun news because SoundCloud, which always has been one of the beacons of the Berlin startup world, now really seems to be in trouble because SoundCloud needs to raise money and they are not really able to do it. They are looking at like a 2 to 3-digit million dollar investment, but no one seems to be willing to pay that much money or to invest. SoundCloud is in the space more or less considered to be in the same space as Spotify is or Apple Music, but Spotify and Apple Music have already way better established their paid subscriptions. Spotify says it's at more than 50 million paying subscribers right now. Apple claims that it has more than 20 million subscribers. SoundCloud has an option where you can pay $10 per month, but it doesn't seem to work that well. And it said that from their heyday, they had a 700 million valuation in 2014. Dollars, that is, and now it seems to be down to 250 million, and they're trying to find someone who buys it for 250 million. Twitter is involved there as well. They chipped in $70 million, I think, last year, and so SoundCloud is also pretty secretive about their numbers. They claim to have 175 million monthly uniques, but this number hasn't been updated since 2014, so you don't really know where they stand in the market. Yeah, so it's either finding someone who chips in a bit more money, or it has to be sold for a price for way less than those 700 million I was talking about.
And this is the other thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the other thing is, so, I mean, and this is my question about these services, right? If you're not Apple, where is your business model? I mean, clicks through is one thing, but I mean, that's kind of, again, these are all good services, but do you guys see these, all of these services, with the exception of, say, Apple, who started it all, are going to, again, be musicalpets.com? Is that where this is heading?
So
I see the problem with SoundCloud a little bit more in the area they don't have a real focus. Spotify is music streaming. Okay, Apple is music streaming, but more expensive. That's what all the Apple customers are usually doing. They pay a little bit more for things that can do the same like everybody else, but there's an Apple on it. But the trouble with SoundCloud for me started pretty early because at the beginning we only did Startuprad.io, the German startup news. It was like we went there and it was a pretty good service and we were happy with all of that, and a lot of other podcasts been hosted there. And then at one point they said, okay, you're a podcaster, you're our main client, now pay. And we said, okay, we leave. And that was about the story. And I know a few other podcasts who did the same. So they are a little bit in trouble to really get a subscriber base going, because podcasts are usually free of charge, like ours is. And so you don't get a lot of money as a podcaster. And on the other hand, you also have the trouble in case of SoundCloud, like we have many people just downloading their audio files to the mobile device without ever directly visiting or seeing SoundCloud, so they cannot even show advertisements. That's a little bit troublesome for them, I do believe.
Yeah, and from a user perspective, I always perceived SoundCloud as being some kind of like the audio offering for professionals, because what I see at SoundCloud is usually DJ stuff and real fancy remixes of things, and it just doesn't seem to have a very intuitive app or way to listen to music. And I would at least argue that Apple leaves a lot of space in the market, because iTunes by now and Apple Music are terrible products to use. I hate it. I hate how to synchronize. It always takes forever, and the whole iTunes to me just seems like a terrible, clumsy product, and it's not intuitive at all anymore. And I just recently, like 2 months ago, I went from my iTunes library to put things up on Spotify. And I mean, in Spotify, I like it a lot more because it's also nice the way it works across different platforms. But my one criticism of Spotify is that it doesn't necessarily do a very good job in recommending me high quality music. They have all these algorithms going on and giving people the mixes, but I have the feeling that a lot of the stuff that happens on Spotify is just giving me fillers and songs that are pretty, that don't really matter to me, but still, it's for me, it's for now the best solution in the market.
Well, what I do believe was that iTunes is getting a little bit Winamped. I think we talked about it in past startup news. So basically, at first you had all the free MP3 downloads, you downloaded everything, and the player of choice has been Winamp. It has been fast, it has been okay looking for the time, and then you just drag and dropped your music, you made up a playlist, that's it. It worked. And the more and more and more editions of Winamp came out, it always got bigger, it got clumsier, it got more disturbing, all the menus, all the settings, everything you could do. Then you could also do videos with it, and then you could also do internet radio with it, and at one point you completely had no clue about the different functions. Maybe they should have split at this point into 3, and I do believe way before that I was already dropping Winamp as the tool of choice, and maybe if so many people wouldn't have been using Apple, what you can only do with iTunes, I think it would have gone the same way. For my personal experience, it gets more and more Winamped.
Well, and here's the thing, and this is, I think, a good transition into one of the next items, which is the Rocket Corner. The ongoing crises at Rocket being described as no plan, no profits, no new ideas. I mean, I think there's a level on some of this, and it's not just app development, it's not just certain verticals. Although I think that like the SoundCloud, Apple Music, streaming stuff is cool, but I haven't seen a lot of innovation, right? And I think that in terms of the Rocket Internet, not that I want to criticize anybody or anything, but I think that there are many players in this startup world who just kind of get there. They might, come out of the gate like, everybody's business and go to town, and then they run out of steam. And would you say that's true of True,
and I mean, especially with Apple, also criticizing that in the hardware sector as well. If you look at a product like the MacBook Air, which was like the design icon when it was introduced, and now it hasn't been changed for what is, I think, 6 or 7 years. Yeah, and so it's also true, I think, for iTunes. I think they are not necessarily treating iTunes that well because they want to educate people away from their hard libraries on the hard drive. They want to educate people away from their libraries on the hard drive towards music service they are using, and this makes it a product which is a bit undecided in between. Before we get to Rocket Internet, just taking a deep breath because I still found out about two little things. One is a more positive note. There is a German startup which sells lampshades, and it's called Lampenwelt.de, so lampworld.de, and they got an additional 120 million euro in funding, which is like a hidden champion people don't necessarily talk often about. We have a link for further information about that in the show notes. And then the German banking institution BaFin, which does banking oversight, is said to be close to handing an insurance license to the Berlin-based fintech incubator FinLeap, where you will also find an additional in-depth information in the show notes, which leads us to what Margaret already spoke about, our little Rocket Internet corner. And this month in the Rocket Internet corner, we will talk about, we found an article called Der Fall Icarus, the case of Icarus. It was, you can probably label it as a takedown of the whole company or the whole system. It was published in the German Business and Economy Weekly Wirtschaftswoche. They came up with a portrait of Oliver Samwer, so one of the Rocket Internet founders, and about the ongoing crisis there. And you already said it. The article is very critical. It started with this teaser of saying no plan, no profits, no new ideas. Oliver Samwer's startup manufacturing runs in crisis mode right now. Will Delivery Hero and HelloFresh offer the chance of a turnaround? Confidential documents raise concerns. So there we have a link in the show notes, but it's not the full link because it's after paid content, a paywall. Yeah, but still, they seem to be in trouble for what we, being the wise, smart, wise asses or wise, smart asses that we are, have been criticizing for months now. That
they need some lampshades. They need to come up with like some lampshades, and that will,
at least the lampshade stuff. I don't know about a copycat. What the lampshade stuff copycatted, and so if you look at a Delivery Hero or HelloFresh, HelloFresh is a 1-to-1 copycat of a Blue Apron, and so that's usually their strategy, and they try to put someone who's capable of doing it in the management seat and then sell with a very aggressive exit strategy, but this seems to come to an end right now.
But not everything is bad about Rocket Internet, I would say. We have Clark.de here in Frankfurt, talking about Frankfurt and the local hub, which was named one of the 50 most promising startups you've never heard of in Bloomberg March 2017. Clark.de is an insurance broker who helps you not only to find the right insurance but to manage it. We have an interview already recording coming up soon after editing by me. Sorry, a little bit overwork, guys. Which was the only and really the only one from Germany, unfortunately, but it's headquartered in Frankfurt. Rhein-Main rocks. Stay tuned for the interview.
Speak more about Rhein-Main. This is your area of expertise.
Yeah, there's
well, this is Frankfurt is a whole nother sub thing. It may be Bjorn's town, but I'm moving in. I have to say, Frankfurt is exploding. Clark is here, but they are just one of the many, and it's exciting to be here.
We
I have to say,
very good examples of successful crowdfunding campaigns like Antelope Suit, where you can find on Startuprad.io an interview we've done with them, being the very first ones in the world to talk to them in an English and German interview at the same time. And we have Kobe Bike, a very experienced and seasoned entrepreneur who does the same to bicycles, what the people who invented smart cars did to automobiles, so you get a smart bicycle out of them. Look in our show notes for all the links. And there's the Tech Quartier, meaning the city of Frankfurt and state of Hessen funded level number 39 equivalent here in Frankfurt, and they try to attract bank-related startups, everything fintech, but not only fintech. Also, we made an exclusive interview with Ram Shoham, one of the two founders of the Accelerator Frankfurt program, who is now also headquartered there, and there will be an Israeli-German startup program there as well as a program of the Boston Consulting Group. Just for starters, Margaret, Frankfurt School, your home turf.
Well, yeah. Well, see, I was going to comment a little bit on that Israeli thing at TQ. I mean, I'm Jewish, right? I'm an American Jew, so I am very, very interested in what they're going to be doing at TQ. But I've also put out some feelers there to everybody and saying, don't leave us American Jews out too. But I think that what's going on at TQ is amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing other things come out of that, particularly because I mean, Jorn was there singing me happy birthday last week when we ran into each other at the Frankfurt School of Management and Finance's first startup night on March 16th. Bjorn, I don't know how you felt, but I was completely blown away. It was packed, packed,
Yeah,
packed, packed, packed,
it
packed.
was completely incredible because it was like 40, 60 startups here from the region as well as some corporate startups. We had a panel discussion including one of the founders of Vapiano, the convenience food chain that is all over the world now in Dubai, New York, Chicago and the like. And they originated here in Frankfurt. You can still visit here the first Vapiano. That was pretty cool, and actually it felt like there was more going on than at many startup conventions you usually attend in terms of first startups, especially new startups. There have been like 60 companies altogether, and I would say even 5 of them I didn't know personally, which of course I changed. Funny, many of them knew already about Startup Radio.
Well,
Personally, I really liked it. Frankfurt School
yes,
did a good job. 2 thumbs
they did.
up, and I hope they'll do more of this pretty soon. Now, here you
Well,
go, Margaret.
yeah, no, I mean, well, first of all, the reason that they all know about you is because, I have to say, I knew a lot of people there. I did. I knew all the startups. I knew all the sponsors there. It was a really great chance to catch up with people. So, but to your point, Bjorn, I think first of all, it was the first one they've ever done. And I think the pressure is on them from the students, from startups, from the community to keep doing more like that, because it was a great energy. To your point, it was a fabulous event. It was more intimate than, say, doing it at the Hessen, business center. And I think that everybody walked through there going, wow. I mean, even to the point where I had my little startup, there at the Frankfurt School table. And even though I didn't have as much money as some of those guys there, because I'm just at the beginning, it was great. And I think everybody who was there, everybody who had heard about it was like, go Frankfurt School, more of this. Yes, please. This is really what we want. And I think the other thing, Bjorn, is, as you mentioned, they had a really nice introductory panel and speakers. They're starting a blockchain center at the school. They're really trying to figure out in different ways to go forward as a business school. And I think clearly the startup thing is well on their radar and good for them. So,
and apparently they also have a student entrepreneur called FS Light Up, and they've been very smart because they already assigned me as a speaker for one of their events. I don't know when, I don't know what I shall be talking about, most likely public relations and startups, but I'll be there, guys, big promise. Also, talking about Frankfurt, there have been at least a successful partially exit. The German parcel service Hermes acquired a majority stake in Frankfurt-based startup Livery. So you can learn more here on Startuprad.io. Housekeeping. Christian, you want to talk?
Yeah, so Stuart Cameron is a guy who approached us. He's the CEO of Ulala, a company which supports, promotes, and connects LGBTI and all the other letters of the internet of this area. People and women in leadership. This sounded terrible. I don't mean it. I support the cause.
Don't worry. We welcome everybody. Refugees from Trump, refugees from North Africa, and everybody who likes to trash and love whatever they do. Don't worry.
It just became mouthful these days. So lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and transident, I think. So at least I hope I got the abbreviation right. And then usually there's the Q for queer in general.
Yeah,
so,
man, it's a queer hackathon. We can say that.
Yeah,
and everyone's
so there you go.
Yes, exactly.
Hackathon. It's called Love to the Front in Berlin, which we would like to advertise here. It's going to be on the 31st of April in Berlin. It will be hosted by Erases, and you can learn more about that at unicornsintech.com. unicornsintech.com, then scroll down to events, or it's unicornsintech.com/work/hackathon. And
Startuprad.io show notes.
True.
Exactly.
Stuart and the people there the best of success. Then we would like you to not miss Startup Radio in Berlin, covering and moderating or hosting the technology panel of the first international cannabis business conference to be held in Germany after legalization.
Yes. That would be me. Hey, I mean, this is like I think this is like a triple thing, right? First of all, Startup Radio is sponsoring this. Seriously. Yeah. This is like the first, and I know for some Germans, I'm saying this as an American, so take it with a grain of salt. But I mean, and this is the other whole thing. So Germany has just basically legalized, medical cannabis. And I'm excited because that's what my business plan for my MBA was all about. But, plus blockchain. But no, regardless, I see this as like a great industry. I mean, particularly because it's medical. And from the startup space, this is going to be a huge wealth of, particularly in the beginning, what's called weed tech. But it can kind of morph into a couple of ways, right? It's kind of reg tech. It's kind of banking, bank tech. It's a little bit of everything, and it's about to hit Germany, and I am super, super, super excited, which is why I've been lobbying Bjorn and telling everybody, I've been trying to maneuver. So now Startup Radio is actually, their sponsor of this is going to be April 9th through the 11th in Berlin. You can there's still tickets available. They are going to have unbelievable speakers. I mean, anyone who's curious about this business, this legal business, it's a great opportunity to find out about it. But in terms of startup stuff, from every perspective, I can guarantee you that we are going to see a lot of creativity coming down the road. And I'm going to be doing a lot of reporting, coordinating with specifically with Bjorn and figuring out how to kind of bring some of the more interesting people that I meet, at the conference itself to interviews here on Startup Radio as well. So that's a little plug, but it's coming up. And if you actually wanted to go in person, again, it's April the 9th through 11th, and I will be chairing the technology panel. So I look forward to seeing our our loyal listeners there, and we will be doing some fun stuff.
And of course, you need a T-shirt of Startuprad.io before you go there.
Absolutely.
There are T-shirts? I never heard of T-shirt. Anyway.
I want a big leaf on mine.
Christian, when it's a birthday, you get one mailed over.
It was 5 days ago.
Oh,
wait a minute,
happy birthday to you.
That was a terrible thing to do again by me. Anyway, I just have a very minor, one thing to close things up. It's a little preview of what's going to happen on our next show, because hopefully next time around we will have a guest on the show. Her name is Dawn Kissy. She's an awesome woman, founder and CEO of a website called Emerging Market Views, which you can find at em-views.com, em-views.com, and it's a business news website focusing on emerging markets. She is American, thinking about relocating probably the whole company to Europe, to Frankfurt. She's very opinionated. I really like her for that. She's going to talk about the London startup scene, the way she perceives the German startup scene, and startup culture here in the US in general. So probably this is going to be interesting. And that's a wrap from me. And now you two little funny people can say whatever you want.
Horses?
Nobody funny.
Horses,
Nobody
maybe?
had fun here, right? No, totally not.
Yeah.
You can do, are we horses to you? You can do horse analytics. Which little horse, whatever. Well, I can be a cannabis horse. And
Startup News will have the hashtag horse analytics. So, sorry guys, if you're out there, CEO, employee, or friend of Horse Analytics, send them out to us. I do a serious interview with them. Don't want to offend anybody, not even the horses.
Oh,
there you go.
Thank you guys. It's been real as usual. Looking forward, more cool things to come.
So that's it.
That's it, guys. Over.
I say bye-bye from New York. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye from Frankfurt. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, this is Jörn from Startuprad.io. Thanks for staying on. This time the recording was so funny that we'll give you some bloopers here at the end. This is a hidden track and you only hear it when you stayed on. Thanks guys. Oh, I like no plans. No plan, no profits, no ideas.
The teaser they had.
Guys, I'm admittedly almost tipsy. I had 2 German root beers.
Oh,
Caramels.
I wish I had drunk I'll put it on top because then I can talk about me messing things up. And we can say that we did like
Margaret,
a
we
little...
still have to do some taxi jokes, right?
Some taxi jokes?
Yeah, last time he had the problems with a taxi.
Oh,
True.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So I do the welcome now?
You do the welcome.
Okay, and so we start now. So please behave. There you go. You don't behave. Okay, 1, 2, 3.